Just trust the process. How many times have those words left your mouth when a client's experiencing fear and self-doubt? Tell me this, right? See if they asked you, what is the process? How confidently would you actually be able to describe it? Beyond following macros in a training plan, building habits and some other vague objectives, how clear is it for the client what they should actually be doing at every single stage of the journey? This is the real secret to client adherence. Imagine a world in which you never had to get a client back on track ever again, because you have a process so watertight, there is nothing to fall off from, saving you that 15 plus hours a week that you spend going back and forward, solving the same problems, never having to read those check-ins that have the same problems week in, week out, hearing I don't know where to start despite you telling them exactly where to start more times than you can count. This is the one tool that takes all our clients from a 10 to 15% churn rate to less than 1% and has saved them an average of 15 hours a week in client calls. So if you want the same thing, keep listening. So in this stats video, I'm going to talk you through the 4 stages of change that all human beings experience through any journey of growth. But I'm going to talk you through specifically what happens to people in a health and fitness journey and how you actually connect your coaching process to work with the change instead of trying to problem solve and firefight your way through it. This lets your clients take full responsibility for their results, their progress and their own behaviours. Let's go. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through the 4 stages of change that we see happen to anyone who goes on a change journey, right? I'm going to talk you through what happens at the 4 different stages and what you need to expect as coach in order to be able to support people through each of those stages. Okay, so when we're at stage 1, we're thinking zone 2 style coaching. Most people come into change overwhelmed, right? The stimulus for change for the vast majority of people is that they are unhappy with something and they want to change it. Although they can come in focused on a goal or creating something, there's often something that they want to undo. And very often for coaches who feel like they don't really have a robust process to offer, although they recognise that they can get results, if you're a coach who experiences drop off around halfway through the process, it's very, very common that you will overwhelm your clients at the beginning because you feel the need to show them everything that you can do and impress them and blow them away, and actually that just overwhelms them even more. So in this initial stage we want to focus on how we reduce and remove overwhelm, not add more in, okay? This is a discovery phase for your clients, so navigating what they believe is a new beginning that is actually a series of endings. People can come into change really energised, focused, pumped up because they think they've found the answer and they've found the solution, but what actually happens is for them to go through the process of change, they need to go through a series of endings and leaving behind things that they used to do or parts of themselves that are no longer relevant and cannot fit with the new version of themselves that they're trying to create, and that can bring on a lot of emotional volatility, a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. So it's really important that for you as coach, you don't add to that or contribute to that, that you hold steady and firm in this is part of the process and this is exactly where I expect you to be, okay? Main objectives here for client are acceptance, awareness and minimisation of overwhelm. We want to become aware of what's actually happening here, right? Aware of their behaviours, aware of their belief patterns, aware of the minor decisions that they are making that are leading to the major outcomes that they are experiencing. Acceptance and taking ownership of those things is really, really, really important. If you hear the client shifting blame elsewhere repeatedly, we have to bring this back to acceptance and responsibility, because they cannot change what they cannot accept. So if they're still in denial about overeating, if they're still in denial about the way that their body works or whether or not a calorie deficit works for them, we need to work on that acceptance of the current reality for us to be able to move anywhere into the future. And then minimising that overwhelm. So if they're already coming to you stressed out, struggling to understand how they're going to fit all this in, and you're adding in a training routine and daily steps and time for shopping and time for meal prep, that's just going to feel like a boatload of new tasks that they need to take on that they don't have any time or capacity for, meaning you don't have their buy-in from the get-go. What we want to look at is what are they doing already that we can adapt and adjust in a minor sense, so we kind of scam their brain and make it feel like they're not really doing anything new, they're just creating slight adaptations to what they do already. Okay, remember, Every single day people move, every single day they cook food, every single week they go and buy their shopping. They're already doing all of these things. We're just thinking about how do I make it really easy for them to tweak that and make it more accessible, okay? Please keep it simple. Do not let your own insecurities or perception of value distort what is needed. Like I said at the start, if you experience quite a lot of early drop-off or premature churn, it's perfectly natural that you think that overloading people with information at the start is the best way to get them to stay. It's not. The people will only retain knowledge on the basis of when they get it and whether it's relevant for where they are at that point in time. So flooding your clients with information about mindset, for example, in the first stage is absolutely pointless. Although you want to show them that you can help them with that, it's not appropriate at that first stage. Okay, what is appropriate are establishing consistent behaviour, habit and routine patterns, right? And helping them to identify the biggest barriers that are holding them back. So we really want to focus on how do we establish the ability and the foundation to get results, and then start to look at how we build on top of that. Remember, the tone of the relationship started here. So understanding your client's brain profile is really, really essential. We won't be able to get into that today, but to understand how they work uniquely as an individual so that you can tailor your feedback style and the way that you interact with them is super crucial for getting them to stay in the longer term. The second stage of change is trust. Now, we base these inside of Built for Coaches on a 12-month process because that's the average kind of standard retention rate that we help people to get to. However, tailor this and adapt this on the basis of what your current retention time is, because these phases will go slightly quicker, or they might not go quicker, but you might not get through every single stage with a client. So we base these in kind of 3-month blocks, right? So by the time the first kind of 3 months is done, we move into the second 3 months, the second quarter, and this is all about trust building, okay? What you have to recognise is that for anyone to work with you long term, they have to trust you, themselves, and then the process. Okay, so this stage is a build phase. Stabilisers are off, the novelty and motivation has worn off, right? This is when the client gets to the boring work. And a lot of coaches struggle with the heavy lifting that happens in this stage, because you do need to spend quite a lot of time reassuring the client, helping them to refocus and bringing them back to building confidence and trust within themselves, but also with you, right? And please don't overlook this. Trust is earned, it is not given. And you have to be able to demonstrate consistency with how you behave, how you interact, how you give feedback, regardless of how they are performing, in order to be able to build that trust, okay? We're looking at building that, we're looking at generating progress, and we're looking at celebrating daily success. At this stage, progress won't look like a linear thing, and if the client panics about not experiencing progress, often the coach also panics. You have to be the beacon of trust and help them to recognise the successes and the progress that they are making, even when they feel that they are not, right? You can really only say trust the process when you have one. So if you don't have a coaching process and you're telling the client to trust the process, what you're asking them to trust is that rinse and repeat macros and training plan is going to deliver a result. Yes, it will for some people. For the vast majority of human beings going through change, though, they need more in order to be able to actually change how they think, change what they believe, and change how they behave. So if you're telling people to just trust the process, make sure you actually have one, okay? You have to be able to demonstrate to the client that results are possible in your coaching partnership at this stage, right? They will just become disengaged if they haven't seen some sort of a result by this point. And remember, results are subjective. So your job as a coach really is to help the client reframe progress, like I said, zoom out and understand what this looks like on a wider scale, beyond just focusing on metric-based progress, but actually helping them to recognise changes in their thinking, their decision-making and their perception of themselves. Now, stage 3 is all about acceptance. This is a stage that not every client gets to, and actually if you experience premature churn, you've normally experienced it roundabout by this point, okay? Because at this point, this is about helping the client to reframe their thinking away from this being the objective of achieving a goal and actually more around establishing a journey and a lifestyle. Not a lot of people get here because not a lot of people get access to the kind of coaching that is necessary for this to be possible, okay? This is a perform phase, and this is when clients start to have a transition of their identity and see this as a way of life. So they're probably looking at doing things, different things they would never have considered before. They're probably thinking way more in line with where their potential actually lies versus where they thought their potential lay at the beginning. And the main objective here is that acceptance that what gets them there is what keeps them there. So actually at this stage, the client is no longer promising themselves to just get to this day or just get to this weight for this event or just get to this dress size. They're actually thinking a wee bit more around the way of life that they want to establish, and they're asking themselves, how do I do this forever, instead of can I do this forever, right? You have to be able to demonstrate at this stage that you can get them more than a surface level result if you want them to stay. It's literally that simple. And if you focus only on transactional above the surface coaching, it starts to become redundant at this point. Because if the client is telling you that they have everything that they need, they're probably telling you the truth. And although it can be frustrating for you as a coach because you want to get them to that end result, if they haven't seen anything beyond the physical things that you have kind of done with them to get to that result, then they're right. If you've relied wholly on teaching and mentoring up to this stage, and they have all of the knowledge and all of the information that you have passed on, but they've never experienced true beneath the surface transformational coaching that transforms their way of thinking, then they are correct when they tell you that they have everything that they need. And this is why it's really, really hard for coaches, that this is the most common place that people will leave the relationship, because you think the client's still got a stone, 2 stone to lose. They've still got this goal that they didn't hit, but actually the reality is that if you've not demonstrated your value as a coach, they can't then consider that and factor that in when it comes to continuing the journey themselves. If they see you as a figure who they check in with, share metrics with, share data with, and nothing more than that, then they're right when they say that they can do it on their own, okay? And this is why you have to understand that your job as a coach is a hell of a lot more than the transactional things that generate a result. It is a hell of a lot more than doing check-ins and motivating people and checking in on their progress. You have to be able to have transformational coaching conversations and help people to rewire their brain if you actually want to retain them for the longer term. And then finally in stage 4, this is when we get to thrive, and this is when it's really important for coaches to accept that if the client's ready to go, they're ready to go, right? At this stage, client has most likely achieved the result and they're in interdependence, which means that they're not fully independent, they're not fully dependent, they understand what they can do themselves and also then when they need you and what you can add on top of that. Main objective here is just solidifying the skills and behaviours that got them here before they then decide what comes next, right? You have to be able to demonstrate that you can be a trusted guide and advisor regardless of what they're working on. So actually, even if they're thinking about a big career move, if they're thinking about moving abroad, if they're thinking about starting a business, if they're thinking about taking a leap into some big scary goal that they never thought possible before, if you have demonstrated yourself as a thinking partner up until this point and helped them to recognise that you can support them to think differently regardless of the context, then they're going to see you as someone essential in their corner. Okay. However, if the client is ready to go and they're at graduation stage, this is a good thing. This is not churn and this is not you losing a client. This is graduation. This is a sign that your process works, that your program and your product is successful, and that people get what they come to you for. Okay. So recognise that this is a really, really positive thing, and always ask yourself, how can I be a positive chapter in this person's life? When they look back and think about this time of their life, how do I remain a positive chapter and a positive influence in what they were working on at that stage in time? Remember as well, these clients are amazing for referrals because they are literally the walking manifestation of your product and how successful it is. So don't be scared to ask for more like-minded people like them who they think that they could help, or who that you could help, or who they think might have potential. Because if you want more of the ideal client, then ask your current ideal client to send more people just like them. I hope this has been useful and given you a wee bit more of an overview of the 4-stage process. So I really, really hope that was useful. And if you want to know actually how you bring all of these people together into one big, strong, powerful community to the point where people think that you're actually running a cult, head to the next video in the series and I'll teach you how.